With Daniel, everything started like wildfire. Big feelings, big gestures, dramatic promises of forever, shouted from rooftops and whispered in the dark. They were impulsive, explosive, obsessed with each other. Their love burned so fiercely, it felt like a star-going supernova. When he proposed, Mary screamed, "Yes!" and threw her arms around his neck. Even now, the memory sent shivers through her. That kind of passion never fades quietly. Everything with him had been intense, sharp, bright, and always on the edge. It was beautiful and terrifying. It had been a year since the divorce. A year she hadn't lived, just existed, waiting for a call, then hating herself for hoping he'd call. She was ashamed of how much she still craved his voice. "How are you, Mary?" His calls always started the same. "Surviving," she'd answer softly, clinging to every word, every sigh, trying to guess where he was. And more importantly, who he was with. "You're not going to open up, huh, Mary?" He'd add, voice laced with sarcasm, as if he still had a right to know. Her time froze in one place, after him. "I'm leaving, Mary," he had said once. "I can't do this anymore. We're always fighting. You won't accept my friends, my parents. You take every comment like it's an attack. There's no understanding between us anymore. I'm sorry I couldn't make you happy." He reached out to tuck a strand of her hair behind her ear. It was a gentle gesture, and it broke her. "You're leaving for someone else," she whispered, her voice trembling. Then suddenly her palm struck his cheek hard. The moment it happened, she regretted it. "There is no one else," he said, holding his face and looking at her with red, weary eyes. "I'm leaving you, Mary, 'cause I see how miserable you are. You tear yourself apart, and me along with you. We've both had enough. So now I'm wrong for caring," she shouted, pacing, arms flailing. "I didn't want you to go on that stupid trip with your loser friends again. Last time you got lost in the woods and had to be rescued by dogs, Daniel. That drunk idiot Mike is going to get you killed. I worry about you. But you'd rather listen to them than your wife. Is that it, Dan?" "You see," he said quietly, "we're always looking at things from opposite sides. We don't speak the same language anymore." He turned to look at their wedding photo on the shelf. In the photo they were glowing, young, in love, immortal. Mary's head thrown back in laughter. His lips pressed to her neck, eyes full of adoration. Now she stood hugging herself while he folded shirts into neat piles. Every movement was careful, methodical. He knew exactly where everything went. Everything except her. She no longer had a place in his life. At first, Mary convinced herself Daniel would come back. That he couldn't live without her. Because what they had, that kind of love doesn't just disappear. It gets into your bloodstream, beneath the skin. Says, but how do you stop waiting for footsteps at the door? How do you learn not to reach for someone who no longer reaches for you? How do you forget the voice that once called you, my love, my only, my heart? She could never understand his parting words. "I couldn't make you happy, so I left." She threw their wedding photo after him the second the door closed. The frame shattered. Glass scattered across the floor like pieces of her broken future. The photo lay among the shards, mocking her. "Look what you ruined, Mary. You always had to argue, always had to be right." But it wasn't all on her. Well, Daniel had his share too. If he had truly loved her, wouldn't he have fought for them? She replayed it constantly in her mind. What she could have done, should have said. But it was useless. You can't rewrite a chapter once it's already burned. She tried therapy. Session after session they dissected every fight, every word, every trigger. And a horrible truth started to unfold. Almost every fight had started with her. Her intensity, her control, her fear of losing what she loved too much. The guilt was unbearable. She wanted to disappear, to lock herself away, become invisible. Sweet things helped a little. Cakes, cookies, marshmallows. Sugar was her sedative. She tried to sweeten the bitterness inside. But instead she bloated. The sleek lines of her figure blurred. Nothing fit anymore. Her body betrayed her, just like her heart had. And tonight, she was carrying a Napoleon cake home, ready to cry into another Turkish soap opera. 25 years old and living like a spinster. She reached for the front door of her building, already picturing the kettle whistling in the kitchen, and froze. Right at eye level, someone had pinned a flyer. Married couple looking to rent in this building. And under it a phone number. A number she knew better than her own heartbeat. Daniel's number. She blinked, hoping it was her imagination. But the digits stayed the same. And below them, his name, Daniel. Mary's chest tightened. Her vision blurred not from tears, but from sheer disbelief. Why here? Why this building? She ripped the flyer down with trembling hands, tore it into shreds and shoved them into the trash. Then, for good measure, she spat into the bin. A family, huh? She hissed. Just the two of you. Anger surged through her like wildfire. Her body needed to move, run, scream, destroy something. She sprinted up the stairs, ignoring the elevator, nearly dropped her keys trying to unlock the door. Even the cat darted under the couch in fear when she burst in, slamming the door so hard the handle dented the wall. A nosy neighbor poked her head out. New tenants, she chirped. Moving in today. Mary turned slowly, her face blank. Oh, you didn't know. The neighbor smiled awkwardly, but her eyes gleamed with something cruel. A distant noise, the elevator doors sliding open. Mary turned, and there he was, Daniel, holding a box. Directing the movers like this was just another Tuesday. Her breath caught. He hadn't seen her yet. Then their eyes met. Mary stormed toward him and grabbed his sleeve. How dare you? Daniel brushed her hand off like it was a piece of lint. I like the neighborhood, he said flatly. I'm used to it. This is revenge, isn't it? She hissed. You're doing this just to mess with me. Go home, Mary. Don't make a scene, he said without emotion. A neighbor watched from her doorway, clearly entertained. You still haven't learned, have you? Mary burned with shame and fury. And then she appeared, clicking out of the elevator in heels that said, I'm here to be noticed. Danny, she whined. I'm tired and starving. I can't guard boxes like a dog, you know. Mary froze. The woman glided past her like she didn't exist and slipped her arms around Daniel. Blonde. Expensive looking. Her skin glowed with skincare money and smugness. Compared to her, Mary felt like a dump truck. He fled. Mary barely made it to the elevator before it closed behind her. She pressed the button for the ground floor with shaking fingers, her chest burning. As the doors slid shut, she heard the blonde's voice echo behind her. Who was that? No one, Daniel replied. No one. The words slammed into her like a punch to the stomach. Outside, on the bench near the playground, the usual trio of old neighborhood women sat like bored queens watching the drama unfold. Their eyes locked on her the moment she walked past. You don't look so good, Mary, one of them called out, voice syrupy with false concern. Something happened. She stopped. Her teeth clenched. Course they knew. They always knew. Oh, it's just Mary, another chimed in. No wonder Daniel left. He found someone younger, prettier, politer. Mary turned sharply. Their faces were full of triumph. Witches in floral cardigans. You should really bring a gift to the new tenants, one said sweetly. It's rude to show up empty-handed. Mary's hands curled into fists. Ladies, she said coldly, I'd rather bring a gift to a landfill. She turned and stormed off, heels clacking like gunshots. She didn't stop until she reached the corner store. Her eyes caught the display of wine bottles, then wandered to hair dye, then lipstick. An idea took root. A decision. She didn't buy a gift. She bought war paint. In her bag. One deep red lipstick. One box of dark chestnut hair dye. One lace-trimmed blouse that hugged her in the right places. And one bottle of the strongest, most rebellious perfume on the shelf. When she returned home, she didn't cry. She didn't eat the cake. She fed the cat, lit a candle, and locked eyes with herself in the bathroom mirror. "You are not no one." Her hand shook slightly as she applied the dye, watching each strand of dullness disappear. She scrubbed her face, exfoliated the heartbreak off her skin. She painted her lips like armor. The next morning, she strutted past the gossip bench without a glance. She didn't need validation. The stunned silence of the old women was enough. Daniel saw her in the hallway 3 days later. She didn't even blink. Didn't flinch. Didn't breathe his name. He, on the other hand, nearly dropped his keys. Daniel had convinced himself he was doing the right thing. New start. New woman. New apartment, even if it was 1 floor above Mary's. But when he saw her in the hallway, hair darker, eyes colder, hips swaying like she knew who she was now, shook him. And Alina, sweet, obedient, always agreeable Alina, just kept smiling. She nodded politely at his friends, laughed at their jokes, baked little cupcakes and asked permission to speak. She was perfect, so why did he feel like choking? Daniel found himself zoning out mid-conversation. He missed Mary's sharp tongue, her fire, her chaos. With Alina, everything was muted, controlled. He felt like he was dating a YouTube tutorial. And then, the cat. The damn cat. Mary's cat, apparently, had snuck into the building during the move. One morning, Daniel walked into his new kitchen and nearly slipped on broken glass and fur. Perfume bottles shattered. Snacks destroyed. Curtains clawed into ribbons. The little demon had left one final insult, a half-eaten houseplant and paw prints across Alina's white rug. Daniel had to admit, some part of him laughed. Mary blinked slowly as the hospital ceiling spun above her. A dull ache pulsed beneath her ribs. The painkillers made everything soft and sleepy. Someone was speaking. "Mary, you're not eating," the voice said, low, warm, steady. She turned her head and saw him. Dr. Timothy Skye. Green eyes that somehow saw through her armor without making her flinch. He wasn't flashy. He didn't charm. He listened. "I'll try," she murmured, her lips cracked and dry. He gently handed her water and watched until she took a sip. Mary flushed under his gaze. No man had looked at her like that in a long time. Not with hunger, but with concern. Not like she was broken, but like she mattered. "I'll check on you again at the end of my shift," he said, still holding her wrist longer than necessary as he took her pulse. As soon as his hand left hers, the cold returned. Her ribs hurt. Her chest ached. And she missed his warmth. Mary laid still long after Dr. Skye left. His touch lingered like a forgotten melody. Not romantic, not possessive. Just warm. And that was the strangest part. She'd forgotten what that felt like. She tried to talk herself out of it. He was a doctor. He was kind to all his patients. But the way his eyes softened when they met hers, that wasn't professional. "Don't be foolish," she told herself. "Don't fall just because someone noticed you." But it wasn't about being noticed. Tim didn't want to fix her. He didn't lecture. He didn't flinch at her silences. He simply stayed. Steady. Present. When Daniel left, he said, "You're not happy, so I'm leaving." Tim said nothing like that. He just looked at her like she was allowed to be exactly as she was. Broken ribs, silent tears, ruined past and all. Maybe she didn't need fireworks this time. Maybe she just needed quiet. Gentleness. A hand that didn't let go the second things got hard. And for the first time in a year, Mary thought, maybe I won't end up alone. She stared at the door long after Dr. Skye left. What was that? A flicker of something warm. A heartbeat that wasn't aching. "Don't be ridiculous," she whispered to herself. It wasn't real. It couldn't be. The last time she let someone in, she lost pieces of herself she hadn't even known were missing. And yet, his eyes weren't like Daniel's. They didn't pierce, they held. Like maybe she didn't need to prove anything to be cared for. "Someone probably already loves him," she muttered, cheeks burning. It was foolish. Reckless. But when she closed her eyes, all she saw was the way he looked at her. like she was still whole. Daniel saw her again. This time in the courtyard, sunlight caught in her new hair color, her posture straight, her eyes distant. Not broken. Not angry. Just done. She didn't even look his way. Something in his chest twisted. "Alina, did you see?" "Who's that?" Alina asked, her voice sugary and flat. "She seems familiar." "No one," he said again, but this time it felt like a lie. Because Mary was becoming someone. Someone strong. Someone glowing even in pain. And Daniel, he was shrinking. She didn't expect to see him outside the hospital. But there he was, standing in line at the bookstore, holding a hardcover titled, "The Body Keeps the Score," wearing jeans and a quiet smile. For a moment Mary froze. Not from fear, from something like butterflies. He noticed her instantly, and smiled. "Mary," he said like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like they hadn't met while she was at her lowest. Like she hadn't sobbed into a hospital pillow for 3 nights straight. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, tugging her sleeve. He nodded to the book in his hand. "Occupational hazard. I like knowing what my patients go home with. Mentally." She smiled. Genuinely. Felt strange. And good. "Coffee?" he asked, tilting his head toward the cafe down the street. No pressure. Just kindness. And she said yes. The cafe was small, tucked between a florist and a repair shop. He held the door for her like it was second nature. No grand gestures. No rehearsed lines. Just warmth. They sat by the window. She stirred her coffee 3 times before speaking. "I used to come here with my ex," she blurted. Tim raised an eyebrow but didn't flinch. "Do you still come here because of that?" he asked gently. She thought for a moment. "No, I come here because the coffee's good. And the silence isn't lonely here." "That's a good reason," he said. They sat in that comfortable quiet, the kind that doesn't beg to be filled. "You're easy to be around," she admitted, fingers curled around her mug. "So are you," he replied. "When you let yourself." And for the first time in over a year, Mary didn't feel like a ghost haunting her own life. Felt. The cafe was quiet. Warm lights. The hum of a grinder. A jazz playlist barely audible over the clink of mugs. Tim stirred his coffee without sugar. Mary watched the swirl. She had no idea what to say. So he spoke first. "You don't owe me anything, Mary. Not your story. Not your pain." She blinked, caught off guard. People always wanted her story. Or worse, her apology. He continued. "But I saw you fighting to breathe in that hospital bed. And now, you're different." "I'm trying," she said softly. And that was the truth. She wasn't healed. Not even close. But she was trying. He looked at her like that mattered more than perfection ever could. "You were the first person," she whispered, "who didn't look at me like a wreck." Tim smiled gently. "That's because you're not." Daniel couldn't stop watching her. She passed him on the stairs, confident, calm, untouched by his presence. No glance. No bitterness. No need for drama. He used to be her world. Now he was just the guy upstairs. Lena noticed. "You always get quiet when she's around," she said one night, slicing vegetables with way too much force. Daniel didn't answer. "She's not prettier than me," Alina snapped. "She's not trying to be," he said quietly. And that's what killed him. Mary didn't need him anymore. And suddenly that was all he wanted. Mary walked home alone but didn't feel lonely. The night air was cool. The city buzzed quietly around her. Somewhere behind her Daniel existed. But not in her world. Not anymore. She reached her apartment door and paused. There was no heaviness. No ache in her chest. Just silence, the good kind. Inside, the cat meowed, stretching on the couch like a little king. She set her keys down and looked at her reflection in the hallway mirror. Hair still slightly tousled from the breeze. Is clear. Shoulders squared. Not broken. Not bitter. Beautiful in the way a storm is beautiful after it passes. She smiled. Not for him. Not for anyone watching. Just for herself.